So this might be a hot take, but I actually think you're supposed to lose your friends in your 30s. Let me kind of explain. Cheers, by the way. So recently we did a Instagram post on my childhood self asking questions, my current self. As I was looking through the photos, I realized like a lot of the people that were in these photos that meant so much to me aren't in my life anymore. If we think about it, think about how much our lives changed throughout time, right? About 20 years ago, I was in high school, just going to college. I had a bunch of what I thought were friends, and I wasn't traveling the world like I am now. I didn't have an online business like I do now, and I actually wanted to go into pharmacy. And so it is kind of crazy thinking about how much my life has changed. But I'd be lying to say that a piece of me wouldn't be a little bit feeling sad these days too, because a lot of these people, even though I'm totally cool with them, right? There's nothing bad between us. We just kind of fell out of touch, over the years. And I think that's just really, really natural to happen. But yeah. When I was in my younger 30s and even late 20s, I felt like for a lot of my time, I was just kind of fighting this urge of trying to keep every single friend in my life. But life doesn't work like that. And I think you really start realizing this when your friends start having families and, we start moving around. And you just realize with some people, you just aren't as close anymore. And I think that's the one thing to just accept that. It's okay if this happens. It's not your fault. It's not because you're a bad friend or anything like that too. And I would argue that, if you're constantly changing and going through new friends and stuff, and, I'm not saying like ending friendships on bad notes, right? Like very few of my friendships have ever ended that way. But I would argue that, you're probably not, if this isn't happening to you, if your friends aren't changing all the time, then you probably aren't growing. And I think about who my friends were, like even 10 years ago when I was in pharmacy. I had a lot of 9-to-5er friends. I had a lot of general yappy, I think that's a term, yappy friends who are like in corporate and stuff like that too. Nothing against those people, but we have very, very different goals, right? Like if you want to be an entrepreneur, you should probably be around entrepreneurial people. If you are trying to get fit, try not to be around people who eat junk food all the time as well, because they just get who you are, what you're trying to do. And when I look at my friends now, right, I do try to stay away from really degen people. If you're probably addicted to Coke, probably not going to spend that much time with you. Or if you have really super degen behaviors, I just don't want to be around that. And it's nothing against the person, but it's actually more of a me problem, because I'm just dude, I know I'm very susceptible to the thoughts, energy, and things around you. And so something I didn't realize too was when I was in my 30s and the business wasn't doing too well, and I was living with my uncle, I realized that I was taking a lot of his negative energy into my life, and I didn't realize how much it affected me until I moved out to Asia. And you'll see this in my Instagram, my YouTube videos, where I was honestly really, really quite sad, and I didn't really know why. And it kind of brought this childhood sadness from my childhood and stuff too, because my uncle's on my dad's side, so they grew up very, very similarly, and it felt that there was this really negative vibe. Back to my original point of being around people who support your goals, that is so important. And so these days, I spend a lot of my time around business YouTubers who have really great goals, who have really ambitious goals. I spend my time around really kind-hearted people who are also giving, because honestly, in the past, I've been burned so many times just over giving. And it's not to blame other people. It's actually the fault of myself, because, it's not even a fault. It's a lesson I kind of learned. And so I try to spend my time around people who tend to be more giving than who really invest into relationships versus the takers in relationships too. So that's who I've been spending my time with. Another example of like being selective of who I spend my time with is like people who are really into fitness. So like I'm in this like big jiu-jitsu, like I'm in this kind of like big jiu-jitsu community right now. And I'm like, I love, one of my favorite people are like entrepreneur owners who are like high level jiu-jitsu practitioners, and also they have businesses and they love jiu-jitsu, and those are my favorite type of people to hang around with. I love being around like people who are really growth-minded, business strategy, love reading books, things like that. If I look back at my life 10 years ago, I didn't have those friends. Most of my friends did not read books. Actually, some of my friends still don't read books, you know, or consume like business content or anything like that. I think the main reason why this kind of feels so painful sometimes is that, you know, we feel like there's something wrong with that person, or we're just trying to change people who, you know, aren't meant to be changed. And you might be asking like, well, Kevin, isn't that a bit judgmental? I'm just like, I don't think so, because, you know, I have plenty of normie friends, you know, but it's just who I choose to spend my time with. Like my mom, she's not into business, right? My brother, he's not into business. Actually, my brother and I were very, very different in terms of lifestyle and all that sort of stuff. But I have a like old history with, you know, my family, the people that I grew up with, the people who are really, really there. And more importantly, they bring energy into my life because of their character, of their caringness, and all that too. And like, I have friends who I just like, you know, it's not that deep, you know, and that's okay. Not every friendship needs to be a fucking ayahuasca experience where like, oh my God, mind blown, right? I also don't think it's healthy to just have one type of friend, but you have multiple types of friends for different occasions and stuff too. I learned this really, really early when I used to go clubbing all the time in Boston back in the day, right? Where I would have my clubbing friends, and then I have my pharmacy friends, and then I would have the friends who I'd really confide in, who are still some of my closest friends today. And actually, some of those circles kind of connected too, where a lot of my clubbing friends, they were the people that were, you know, that really helped me out during a really, really hard time. Maybe I'll do a full video on this, like a full sit down video on this, but my main point is like, if you feel like you're losing friends in your 30s, you're not really losing them. You're just growing into a different version, hopefully into a version that you want to be. And it's a good sign of growth because, like, you know, I think us, as we grow up, as we get better at things, I just feel like we just naturally filter people out, and you should be excited about the process. Or I don't want to say should, but, you know, you have a choice. You can be like, oh, I'm losing all my friends, or you can be excited like, oh my God, this is actually opening up more opportunity for more friends and stuff. The problem is though, is a lot of people just get stuck not focusing on putting themselves out there, going out there to, I don't know, to interest groups and stuff like, oh yeah, I meet a lot of people at jiu-jitsu, or I meet a lot of people at yoga, or I meet a lot of people through hosting events. Or, I mean, I even went to one in Vietnam, but it was an English language exchange, right? Where you just like speak to locals, they would want to learn English from you and all that. And so there's so many different cool things out there. My unsolicited recommendation is to just travel somewhere new, but it really forces you to really analyze your friendships and like the people that you want to surround yourself with based off your new version. It's very, very, very hard to break old habits in your old environment. And I think there's a possibility for you to go back into old environment and change and stuff too. When I think about like this year, I think more than ever, I've just been okay with not being friends with everyone, and like, you know, I just don't tolerate like super messy people anymore. Like really, really messy people or fucking crazy people. Like those people will drive you down, or super negative people. Like I have this friend who comes to mind, and bro is always like complaining about stuff, and I had to check him a few times too, because I was just like, hey, listen, like I notice you doing this a lot. Hey, nothing against it, but I just don't really want to be around that energy personally, right? And it's hard to be around, you know. I like being friends with you, but I can't be around that. And so like you start having a lot of these conversations like these as you get older too, and I feel like it's a really, really good thing, you know? I made this protein sludge thing that I saw Dan Go make. It looks like crap, but shit ton of fiber, shit ton of protein in here. Really, really healthy. If I were to be really honest though, I feel like my friendships, they get better and better and better over time. And yes, there are some friendships that have really hurt me in the past where I'm just like, man, I invested all this time, all these resources into people. But I look back at it, I'm like, well, dude, it was your fault. It was your responsibility, Kevin. It was a lesson that you kind of learned, because you just get better at realizing who are people who invest back in the relationship, who are the people that don't, who are the people that always take, you know? And so, yeah, man, it's been quite a journey with friends, man. You know, I used to be friends with everyone by default, but now I find that I'm being a lot more selective, because I only have so much energy in a day. I'm getting older, you know, like things are changing like when you start becoming more successful. I don't want to say I'm successful, by the way, but when you start like making more and more money, or you find these hobbies that really pull you in, like jujitsu, you start realizing that you only have so much time in the day, and you have to be very, very selective of who you gift that time with and who you don't. And I'm not saying gift as like an entitled type of thing, right? But essentially when you start anchoring toward that, like what you could be doing, then it changes the dynamic for a bit. And then when you actually do spend time with someone, and you are intentionally spending time with someone, it means a lot to that person. Cheers, by the way. What I'm trying to say is, when you actually lose friends, it's no one's fault. It's not your fault. It's not their fault. It's a natural progression of life. And it's just a matter of preferences, you know? And it doesn't have to be this emotionally intense breakup that we see on TV, or that we dramatize in our head. It's just like, you know, I just have different priorities in my life right now. Just like how, you know, when I was a kid, I used to spend all my time with my mom, right? But as a 38-year-old, that'd be kind of weird, right? And I have bigger ambitions and all that too. How do you like these like more casual yapping videos? I feel like I like them. I really enjoy them a lot, because it shows you the messy inside life of everything that I'm doing, and then I also get to prep my food and stuff too. What's your experience with friendships? Do you agree, disagree? Let me know in the comments. Try to be nice, guys. Try not to be a dick. And then who knows, you might meet your next friend in the comments and stuff too. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace, my people. Bye.